Hey y'all. Celeste Martinez here, founder and owner of Celestial Alegría. How's it going? It's been a minute since I hopped on a live, so it's good to be back. It's been a minute since I've really been engaging, I feel like, with social media fully, so yeah. But I wanted to hop on today in the spirit of Testimony Tuesday. It's also been a while since I shared some reflections or my own testimonies with you all. And last week on Wednesday, early in the morning, we were experiencing the Sagittarius Lunar Eclipse. And in the spirit of that day, my compañera Cristina Aguilar of Aguilar Strategies and myself, we have been co-leading a process with a local organization here in Denver. And we met with their leadership team later that day, and we facilitated a whole reflection on how eclipse and the moon is an opportunity for us to notice important lessons around leadership, important lessons around times of transition, important messages, right? For us in this season of eclipse that we're still in, all the way through the new moon that will be coming up on June 10th, the Gemini new moon. So all of that being said, we facilitated this session, right? And there were some questions that we posed to this leadership team that I wanted to share with you all. One, because I felt like these were really powerful questions. And two, because, I spent some time with Cristina and we reflected on these questions together. And there was a lot that came up for me and really pushed me to share with you all about what I am up to this summer and some of the things that will be shifting in this upcoming summer time in this season. So with that, just thinking about eclipse, right? It's a relationship between light and shadow. And in that theme, we also thought about how eclipse is a moment to notice transition, right? It's where we see literally the sun or the moon overlap with each other. And in that way, right, there's that experience of transition. There's an experience of an alignment. And so one of the first questions we asked is like, what is coming up for you during this time of transition? I was like, oh, am I really going through a time of transition? To start with that question. And I realized, yes, there is a lot that is happening in this season, in this time. I have been transitioning of ending some projects, and new projects are beginning. I'm coming up on a full first year to celebrate of Celestial Alegría, and it is a time of transition, right? A lot of what I was thinking about or wanting to create or wanting to manifest for the first time, there are things that now I'm getting into the flow of, like the third, the second, the fourth, the fifth time of making those types of projects happen. And I feel like each cycle, right, each opportunity that I have to work on various things teaches me new lessons. And I think this time of transition, of letting go of some projects or concluding them, letting go of some, mentalities that I had when I first started, like it is a time of transition. There's a shift. And so I appreciated that question because I was like, oh, here we are in this moment of transition. And I'm curious for you all, what transitions are you facing? What's coming up for you in this time of transition, in this season of eclipse? Is there something that you're noticing? And here we are about to also transition from spring into summer as we are in the month of June, right? And so, yeah, what's coming up for you as it relates to transition? And there were 2 other questions that we asked. The second question that we asked is, what is being illuminated? Right, so going upon that theme of light, like what's being illuminated for you in this time? And the second question is, what shadows are you noticing? And, man, when I really sat down with Cristina to answer these questions, I had to really pause. And it was easy to answer that first question for me. What's being illuminated? The message came through, right? It was rest and balance. And I was like, oh, okay. Rest and balance. That makes sense. This past month of May, I found myself kind of working at a pace and completing so many different things all at one time that it definitely was not well balanced. And by the end of May, yesterday, I found myself just exhausted from the whole month, right? Exhausted from all these things that I had been juggling and carrying. And I really reflected that there wasn't as much time to just sit and process and be still. And I had curiosities about that, right? And so I think that brings to the question of and what shadows are you noticing? Right? And the shadows that I've been noticing, have a lot to do with things that I am unlearning. Things that I've been unlearning since I stepped out of the nonprofit industrial complex, and also things that I'm unlearning that come long before any professional experiences that I've ever had. But I do think it's significant, right, that some of these things that I'm unlearning and that I'm noticing as my shadows were fortified by my experiences in the nonprofit industrial complex as a nonprofit organizer, as an organizer, right? So the first shadow that I'm really noticing that I'm constantly being pushed to unlearn is burnout. Pretty matter of fact, burnout. And I share that because I feel like burnout culture and burning yourself out is something that's actually really praised. Overworking yourself, taking on that 80-hour, 60-hour, 100-hour work week. Sometimes that's more celebrated than the relationships that you have with people, or the ways that you're bringing people together, or challenging yourself to have that courageous conversation with someone that you were struggling with for a while. There's so many things that get missed when what's most important is how much we are working, how many hours you're putting in, how much you're giving of yourself. And the reason why I say this is because I really feel like there are some of those things that I learned, and also expectations then that I internalized to put on myself. And so I've noticed as I reflect on this past year, there's so many things that I when I launched Celestial Alegría and other projects like Colorful Colorado collaborations with my friend Alicia Bruce Trujillo, when I seeded those visions and ideas and put them out into the world, I found myself going. Not really thinking about the sustainability of things, not really thinking about the long-term vision, but let's produce, let's make things happen, go. And, whether it was the end of last October, as we headed into the winter, or even headed into this year, as I started my work up again, I noticed, right, that I felt this push to do. And it's interesting because leading into the creation of Celestial Alegría, so much of the messages that I received was to learn how to be. To learn how to be present with myself, to learn how to be present with spirit, with ancestors, to learn how to be present with the people around me, to learn, like how to be, to learn how to just be. And I don't think that was an accident by any means. I really think that there is that draw, right, to balance. And so with that, right, I find myself as I reflect on like, what are those shadows that I'm noticing in this time? It is actually to shed that identity, that burnout is a part of the work culture that I want to cultivate in the world, or want to belong to, or want to associate myself with. That actually, if I am letting the light shine more on rest and balance, that means that I have to let that mentality, those beliefs, that whole identity go. And the other piece that I want to share around this of, what other shadows am I noticing in this time that I think relates a lot to burnout, but is very specific, is the reality of women of color being overworked and underpaid. Overworked and underpaid in multiple fields, in multiple industries, and in particular, right, in the nonprofit industrial complex. And, when I launched my business a year ago, and I was thinking about, what would I charge, like, in order to offer different programs, different services, different things, the feedback I got again and again from my peers is that I was not fully valuing what I was offering. And I struggled so deeply. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I just need to make what I need to survive. And I realized that starting from that framework of I just need X amount to survive was holding me back from a vision of what it would mean to thrive in my own life. What it would mean to thrive in all areas of my life. And there's still many things that I find myself, right, like really being pushed on how to fortify this shedding, this unlearning of this particular shadow. And, right, as I reflect on this past year, and that came through very clearly for me about halfway through this year, is that the hustle culture of entrepreneurship, the, mentality of just working endlessly, or that because I'm an entrepreneur, I need to overextend myself or only be about my business and constantly promote or market or this or that, right? Like all of those things I realize are from this shadow of overworking and being underpaid. And so I guess like the point I really want to lean into here and sharing with you all is that just because that may be the default of what I know doesn't mean that's who I'm called to be anymore. And so I think like in responding to these questions of noticing what's being illuminated and noticing what are the shadows, really I felt this push to like let go and shed, offer to the fire, if you will, this mentality of being overextended, of working myself towards burnout, of not centering and prioritizing rest and balance. And so with all of that and all those things, right, it's led me to really hone in on what I have capacity for in this time and what I am able to offer through Celestial Alegría moving forward. And so, as hard as a decision as it was, I realized I need to pause on some of the set of work that I've been doing in community over this past year, so I can really rest and reset and become in greater balance before resharing some of these things with the world. So some of those projects that I will be pausing is actually the Confronting Anti-Blackness program for Latinx and Chicanx folks. I'm pausing this because there's some things that need some attention as it relates to the actual program itself, and also some important feedback and questions that I've received over the past year from the participants in the past 3 communities that have been a part of that very powerful and transformative journey. And I knew upon launching that project that was just the beginning of something that's so much more. And I can't wait to have this time, this pause, to really allow it, this program to transform into whatever else it needs to be. I will be doing some community projects that have some parallels or threads that relate back to Confronting Anti-Blackness, and I will be sharing more of those details at the Celestial Alegría virtual birthday party on June 10th from 6 to 8:30 p.m. From 6 to 7:30 p.m. I highly invite you to join so you can learn about all of that. You can RSVP at my link in bio. And so before I share more of those details, that means as I pause around the Confronting Anti-Blackness work, that means that I also will be pausing the Reparations network for now. Again, this was a really challenging decision, but I realized that, after the past 3 cycles of us as a community raising $15,000 and paying reparations to 30 Black leaders, artists, organizers, healers, poets, and organizations in our community, that there is a call to pause. There is a call to reimagine what is possible. So those 2 programs will be pausing. The other thing that I wanted to share with you all that's good news is that my business is booked. My business is booked for organizational clients through the end of 2021. So unless we're in a current project together right now or in conversation about an upcoming one that we've been in process around, I am all booked for inquiries, and I feel so grateful for that abundance and that support, because I know so much of what I have is because of the generosity of community, constantly sharing my name, constantly sharing about your experiences with me. And so I deeply thank you for all of that. As I mentioned, Celestial Alegría is turning 1. And so you are invited to join for my virtual birthday of Celestial Alegría as a business. It will be again on June 10th at 6 to 7:30 p.m. There will be celebration, there will be music, there will be testimonies, there will be so many things coming up. There you can RSVP at the link in my bio. I really hope to see so many of you there for that virtual celebration, because this isn't just about me. This is about celebrating for our community so many things that we have done together over this past year. And joy is crucial, y'all. Joy is an act of resistance. Centering our joy, claiming our joy, creating that space of celebration is so important for everything that we have been navigating. So I hope that you will enter into that space of joy and celebration with me. And I thank you so much for joining me for this Testimony Tuesday. on illumination and shadow. And I'm curious for you, what comes up with those questions? What are you noticing during this time of transition? What's being illuminated? And what are you learning from your shadows? Until next time, y'all, be well, and we'll talk soon.